What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Rurouni Kenshin. This is episode 7, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Mhm. Yeah, so picking up immediately after the last episode, after Genie kidnapped Kaoru, um, Kenshin, of course, immediately finds where Genie's keeping Kaoru hostage, and pretty much the entire episode is just these two characters fighting each other.
I was a little bit concerned going into the episode because we haven't really seen a lot. I mean, we have seen some fight scenes from the series, and they've looked okay. But I was a little bit concerned because I was anticipating this whole episode was going to be this fight. I mean, which it pretty much is, and I was concerned about how if the animation was going to be any good at all because I mean it hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been like all that great at the same time. But I mean, this was probably the best looking episode in terms of the way the fight was animated, though, because there are some pretty fast movements, and it's not just kind of a lot of speed lines and freeze frames and stuff like that. So I was fairly impressed by that.
Yeah, considering that, what was it? I think the last the last studio that animated the original series, I think it was two different studios that did this. I think it was Gallop and Studio Dean animated the original
Mm,
series. I think this one is being animated by Studio Leiden. So, in
yeah.
terms of like the animation quality, I think it held up pretty well in terms of how this fight turned out between Jinei and Kenshin.
Yeah, which basically, for those of you who've seen the first movie, this is sort of like the ending of that movie. So I'm assuming what's going to happen because the first movie dealt with one of the other antagonists from the series is that it's. I'm guessing this series will probably go in reverse order, whereas Jane A was kind of the other antagonist of the first movie, and he was kind of dealt with last. I'm guessing that it'll go in reverse for the anime series, where the other antagonist will show up
Well,
probably like after this.
Well, the only
Um,
the only I mean, yeah, it's true that Jinei was the main antagonist for the first movie, but the only difference is that he went about as the Batosai in that film, while in the anime series there was that
yeah,
fake Batosai guy in the beginning of that series, but he only did that to ruin Kaoru's reputation at the dojo.
yeah. Although in this episode, Jine does say like he tried to uh, become like what Kenshin used to be, to become like as ruthless as he was.
Yeah, it also showed in one flashback that Kenshin fought against several members of the Shinsengumi and killed at least several of them. With Jinei being involved in one of them, but he never really engaged in Kenshin at the time. All at first, like it appeared that he was scared at first, but then it inspired him to pretty much become what Kenshin was back prior to the Meiji era.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So basically, like this episode, Jine and Kenshin do end up fighting each other, and uh, Jine or Kuragasa is basically trying to antagonize Kenshin further to get him to sort of like revert to his old ways and trying to get him to use the other side of the blade and kill him. So he just does these different things. Kaoru, he ends up using his I forget what it was called, but the sort of petrification ability on Kaoru that basically makes it so that she can't breathe, and that the only way to get out of it would be to have Kuragasa be killed or for her to break out of it herself.
Yeah, which Jinei, well, points out that he doesn't believe that Kaoru can be able to break it herself. So this pretty much forces Kenshin to pretty much to revert back to his Batosai ways to really just pretty much he's determined to kill Jinei just to save Kaoru.
Yeah. Um, and there were some interesting things I noticed that were a little bit different than how they play out in the movie, at least. Because I don't remember Kuragasa doing this other thing he does where he uses some kind of technique to make himself more like stronger or more powerful. That I don't remember that happening.
No,
Only the petrification stuff. It seemed like I don't know if this is true for the anime series, but it seemed at least in the movies even though there were some things like I guess you would call like sort of like unrealistic or super almost supernatural elements that it tried to stay mostly like grounded or realistic uh, as much as it could have, I guess. But it seems like the anime series has some more like it kind of has, I guess, more supernatural stuff in it. Um, because we see stuff like this happening where he's just able to make himself like stronger, just based on some kind of technique.
Yeah, that I don't know. It just I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me for him to simply just do that just to make himself, I guess, stronger physically just by hypnotizing himself. But
But then
I
at
mean,
the
over,
same time, we also see him like his appearance change drastically from what we see in the flashbacks to where now he's got like white hair and red eyes, and there's stuff like that as well, which the movie did kind of do that too. So I mean, but yeah, it's just interesting to note that it seems like there are some points in the series where I guess that it does introduce some, I guess what you call like sort of supernatural elements to it.
yeah. So the fight continues to go on until Kenshin uses his special technique called the Bato Jutsu, in which it's just like his it's pretty much his he starts off in a battle stance, and then he finishes off his enemy by just drawing his sword and then finishing him off. But with
Yeah,
the with this sword, was it the Sakaboto? I think it was, or his
yeah, Sagabato, yeah.
yeah. So because like it's the blade is on the opposite end, and he's unable to kill him. However, like um, GNA manages to dodge the first strike, but he's unable to dodge the second strike, which Kenshin uses. Uh, what was it? The sheet,
The
the
sheath.
wooden sheath to break his arm. So now GNA is unable to to wield his katana again, and just when Kenshin is about to deal the killing blow on him, Kaoru manages to break out of the the what was it, that paralysis or hypnosis to break herself free, which stops Kenshin from killing GNA. But but of course, just when Kenshin is about to tend to Kaoru, it looks like Gine is about to continue fighting Kenshin with his left arm, but instead he decides to just kill himself.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I mean, and there were a few points as well where Kenshin did revert back to his old self, especially when he was about to land the finishing blow on Kuragasa, but he ends up being stopped by Kaoru, and he goes back to who he was before.
Yeah, and of course, just when well, during Jine's last moments after he stabs himself, he pretty much taunts Kenshin, but he also kind of reveals that he's been hired by somebody else. Uh, in hopes that that they'll go back to their previous ways prior to the Meiji era.
I do think I remember this from the movie as well because I'm not gonna say who it is because of spoilers, but the villain, the other villain in the movie, like I think it was revealed before this part that he was the one that hired uh, Gine. So I guess that might be teasing the reveal of this other person that's
Yeah,
going to, I guess, show up later.
yeah. This is definitely going to lead to the next story arc, which is going to take
Yeah.
place after this. But I think that they're going to build up to more characters we haven't seen yet. I think it was I think it was like one of the officers of the Shinsengumi, and I think there was another character who also has a gripe against Kenshin as well.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, and of course, after this fight, they do return back to the dojo, and that's kind of where things essentially, pretty much where they end off with the episode. Um, Kenshin returns the ribbon that Kaoru gave to him, and of course, it's covered in blood. And for some reason, Kaoru gets on him for this. Like, I don't really. I guess it's just supposed to be like a comedic thing, but it's like it's kind of it doesn't really make sense to me because of course, yeah, it's going to be bloody because he was in a fight. Um, but yeah, she's upset that there's blood on it. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much the episode. Um, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, of course, we also see that another shot of GNA's body after he just kind of lying there, and I guess Kenshin, in order to in a respectable way, like covered his face with his hat. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good episode. Probably one of the best one. Probably honestly my favorite so far, just because um, it really felt like it had the most going on, and it was sort of I don't even know if you call this a story arc, but just sort of the climax of what they didn't I guess built up from the last episode. Um, and also it was like the most interesting thing that's happened in the series so far. And I mean, if you've seen the movie, you already know uh, what was going to happen, and also what's going to happen later, probably. But it was still interesting to see it happen in anime form and to see, I guess, what some of the differences were.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is definitely, I would consider like the a good finale for the first major story arc for the Rurouni Kenshin series. And now we'll finally move on to the next story arc, which is going to introduce one of the major villains, which if you guys watch the second and third movies, you'll know who I'm talking about. But like I said earlier, there's still at least several characters who have yet to appear. I think there was one other character who's associated with Sagara. I think her name was um, Takani Megumi, I think. And then like I
Yeah,
said, there was like other characters like what was it? One of the former Shinsengumi officers who works for the government now.
yeah, yeah. So I can't wait to see them be introduced, and I mean because they were in the movie as well. Um, yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about the episode. I thought the animation was pretty decent, probably the best we've seen from the series so far. Um, and I mean, I hope with some of the other climactic moments in the series that they kind of step it up. I mean, I know Leiden Films is it really known for having like the best animation? Like they're decent, but I'm hoping they kind of step it up for some of the stuff that happens later on.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the animation styles, I mean, well, for most of the fighting scenes for Rurouni Kenshin, it was mostly fast paced. Kenshin himself as a character is mostly portrayed as like, as a swift fighter. He doesn't really like get into prolonged conflicts all that much. He just like basically just jumps in and just resolves the conflict just immediately.
Yeah, but of course there are villains that will show up later where that's not really so much going to be the case because they're stronger than Kenshin or they can really like hold their own against him.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like so far, I am liking like how this. I guess you could say it's a reboot series or a re-release version of the show is being adapted so far. So as of right
Mm.
now, it is so far remaining faithful to the original manga, and hopefully, it'll continue to do that probably until its final arc. Um, in
Yeah,
terms of like this being like they said it was like what 24 episodes for this
I
series.
think
So
so.
I don't think that I mean, unless they're gonna make another set of episodes after this, I don't know if 24 episodes is gonna be enough to cover all of this.
They would have to. I mean, especially I would assume at the pace they're going, that's probably what they're going to do. I can't imagine they're going to try to do everything in like one season. Uh, I mean, I would also look at the other something else they've been working on, which is Bastard, which is the other adaptation that Leiden Films has been doing, and
Mhm.
they said they want to try to adapt, faithfully adapt the manga for that, and they didn't try to do all of that in one season. They also had another season they came out with,
Yeah,
where they've supposedly, I guess, been trying to somewhat, mostly faithfully adapt the manga.
yeah,
So I'm assuming they're probably going to have the same approach with Kenshin, but I can't say for sure. But I mean, I'm just kind of, basing it off of some of the other stuff they've done. I'm, I wouldn't assume that they're going to try to do everything all at once.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, for the original Kenshin series, I think it was like almost as close to 100 episodes for that series. So 24 episodes for this show is not going to be enough.
they would definitely need to have like, multiple seasons, especially considering how lengthy the manga is.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to adapt,
I also
mostly adapt it.
I also remember that there were some filler episodes. So unless they're going to completely scrap a lot of the filler stuff that the original series did and instead they just follow the original source material up until the end. I think it's possible they could do, I don't know, maybe about a little more than half the amount of episodes than what the original uh, than what the original series did. But it's hard to say. But
I guess it depends on how much filler content was in the original series. I mean, it could be they got ahead of the manga, and of course the manga's finished, so that won't be the case here. So they'll probably, I mean, it might not be near. I mean, it might still be like around that length, but uh, I don't think we'd have to worry about any kind of filler content.
probably not. And then there was also these like OVA films. I think one of them, I think that Reflection OVA was, I don't know.
I
I
think that was an
don't.
anime original ending, wasn't it?
Yeah, it seemed like it, and not many fans of this of the show really liked the way that OVA ended, and they were hoping for some kind of, like, I don't know, more proper conclusion to Kenshin's storyline. But I mean, we'll have to
Yeah.
see. Like I said, we'll have to see where this goes. I mean, it's still very early on um to this re-release version of the anime, so we'll have to see where this goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.